All right, so we have just completed adding all of our relation lines to our diagram, connecting up all of our classes. Now it's time to add multiplicity and directional labels. So multiplicity only applies to association and aggregation. It will not apply to inheritance. And that goes for directional labels as well. And you don't know what directional labels are yet, and that is okay. We will add them and you will see. So they're not that complicated. So starting off, let's take a look at the user interface. Just get these associations done. These are all going to be very similar, the multiplicity for our user interface and our relating to the rest of our classes. So taking a look at, just going to grab a random class here, beverage list. So we have our beverage list and we have our user interface. So our user interface can be displaying one list of beverages at any given time. So we are going to say that this relationship, this multiplicity is going to be 0 or 1. So think about it. So a user interface doesn't have to be displaying or doesn't have to be accessing the beverage list. So that's 0. It could be accessing other classes, right? So it doesn't have to be displaying the beverage list. But if it does access it, it can only access 1 because, well, you know, you wouldn't have multiple views of that list. And so that's a way that you can think about user interface. Relating to other classes. So then let's think about it the other way. So the beverage list can be open in no user interfaces. So we're going to say 0, or it can be open in many interfaces, right? So you say you have somebody in Layton accessing the user interface, and then you have somebody in Ogden accessing the user interface. So since it is a since the user interface can be accessed by anybody who has a device connected to the internet, so we can think of it that way. So the user interface can have access to 0 or 1 beverage lists, or the beverage list can have access to 0 or many user interfaces. And that's going to be the case for most of these relationships. So I'm going to pause and I'm just going to go and work through these. And if there are any of them that are different, I will go ahead and stop and let you know. Okay, so I've gone through and added my multiplicities for the association relationships, and I have not found anything different. So every instance of a class, every class seems to have that same relationship where only one of that object can be shown on the screen at once. So for example, we have the user class here. So this one is a 0 or 1. I can zoom in so you can see that 0 or 1, and the time that a user might be able to see these details might be if the user ends up going to their account page. They'll be able to see their name and email and password, and so for this particular diagram where we stand right now, there are no classes that have anything other than 0 or 1 on the side of the association and 0 or many. So, but when you're thinking through your own diagram, just think about how many can be displayed, how many instances. So maybe if there was multiple payment informations, maybe you could see all of those details at once. And so that would be 0 or many being displayed, right? So anyways, that's the concept there. Let's go ahead and talk about aggregation multiplicity. So here we have aggregation multiplicity. And let's take a look at beverage list and beverage. We have a beverage is related to how many beverage lists. Well, a beverage, in this case, we are only related to one list. So we only have one list, and so it's only related to the one list, right? So there's only one list that it can be a part of. And so we have at least 1 here. And so, but we say 1 and only 1 because that beverage is going to be in some list, right? So it has to exist within a list. And so it has to, so it has to exist in 1 and only 1 instead of 0 and only 1, or 0 or 1. So it can't not exist in a list. It has to exist in a list. Okay, so beverage list has how many beverages. So we're going to say that the beverage list is associated with 0 or many beverages. And the reason we say that is we're going to say that the beverage list does not need a beverage in it to a beverage object in it to exist. It can exist without the beverage objects added yet. So it can exist there before the beverages have been created. It just would be empty, right? But we're also going to say that it can have many beverages objects in it. So I'm going to pause, and this is what we're going to do here for user and user list as well, because that is a very similar relationship, and the same thing with user interface and layout. And the only other different, there's two different aggregation relationships. We have payment information and customer. Let's talk about that one. Payment information. So a customer can have how many payment information? Well, in this instance, we can only have one, because that's all the product backlog really talks about. It says the user can add a payment information, and it doesn't say anything else about adding any more. So what we're going to say is that a user or a customer is associated with one or and only one payment information. So what I'm saying here is I'm assuming that upon sign up, my customer is going to enter that payment information. So when that customer account is created, so is that payment information. And then the same, so let's think about the payment information to the customer. So a customer can be associated with a payment information can only be associated with one and only one customer. So when that payment information is created, it is created alongside the customer. So it has to exist. It has to be associated with at least one customer at all times, and can only be associated with one. So I can't have access to somebody else's card that's on their files, right? So only one customer can hold that payment information object at least. Okay, so that's finished there. Let's take a look at nutrition facts. So a beverage can have how many, a beverage is associated with how many sets of nutrition? One and only one, right? So every beverage is going to have a set of nutrition facts, and it can only have one set of nutrition facts. The nutrition facts can be associated with, these are going to be very customized to that particular beverage. So we're going to say when created in the system, it's going to be created alongside of the beverage. So I'm going to say nutrition facts are associated with at least one and only one. So again, we have another one and only one on both sides of those. Okay, we're going to jump into one more video. I'm trying to keep these short, and we're going to jump into another video and talk about the directional labels and then wrap everything up here.